So the laptop story was true? Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America.
And you ain't black.
The first time ever any...
What are you people?
We're Americans.
We are Americans indeed. My name is Vincent, a.k.a. Kylo Ren, a.k.a. the Black Pope, a.k.a. the Brown Bean. And we're here to bring you the news, dear listener. I know that it's a Sunday. It's usually the weekend, but I thought to myself, what the hell? Might as well. And also that rhymes. Okay, guys. So we're talking about the recent revelation about Hunter Biden's laptop. Shout out to Paj Mahaj. He was the first guy. Bada bing, bada boom. So we're talking about Hunter Biden's laptop, dear listener. And Jimmy Dore did a spot on this. So let's check it out. Apparently, I'm also the Black Jimmy Dore. That is an honor. Shout out to Ashura. Shout out to Jimmy Dore, by the way. Congratulations to the big homie on hitting 1 million subscribers. Where's the JD interview? The JD interview, I still haven't released it because the audio is just so terrible. People keep telling me, we don't care, Vin, about the audio. We don't care. But I do. I don't know. Maybe I'll get over myself and do it. But yes, we're talking about Russian disinformation today, kids. We are discussing Russian disinformation because, as you know, anything that makes the DNC look bad or their plans or anything in the media is Russian disinformation. Here's Tasco. Tasco saying, I wouldn't touch this one with a 10-foot pole, bro. Yeah, this one's going to be very interesting because who knows what's going to happen. The New York Post got their entire Twitter account suspended. I mean, this is one of the premier news outlets in the world. They got their entire Twitter account suspended. So you never know. So if you are enjoying Middle America, enjoy it while you have it, dear listener, because you never know. Okay, guys. Did they take out my Ukraine on fire video? No, my Ukraine on fire video is still live, I believe. So that's good. Like I said, we're small enough, and we always will be small enough to where they'll leave us alone. Let me check my Ukraine on fire video now, because you got me paranoid. Oh, let me go to the live section here. Yeah, Ukraine on fire is still up, I think. Yeah, Ukraine on fire video is still up. Shout out to Han Solo. Okay, guys, here we go. Here's Jimmy talking about the Hunter Biden laptop controversy. Shout out to Pirate Alex. I appreciate it. I mean, that was a 4-hour stream, guys. That was a marathon. By the way, guys, let me know how the audio is going. Are you going to do the other 2 sequel documentaries, Vin? Well, you guys seem to really enjoy the Ukraine on fire video. So if there's another, I might set something up to where if you guys want us to do a watch along, we might be able to do that on Friday nights, you know what I mean? Or Wednesday or Thursday nights, I'm not sure. But yeah, that's something we can all talk about together as a community. It was a fun stream, and so it was good. Okay, now you guys don't care about that. You care about what I brought you with my nifty little title. Without further ado, here we go. The Hunter Biden laptop controversy. Controversy. I think that's how British people say it. So let's check it out, guys.
Hunter Biden's story is Russian disinfo. Dozens of former intel. So you remember Hunter Biden left his laptop at a repair shop, and then it got revealed, and there was all this sensitive information on it. And Glenn Greenwald wanted to write a story about it at The Intercept, and they wouldn't let him publish it. And if you remember, Twitter shut down New York Post web Twitter account because they wanted to also tell this story about Hunter. And so they said it was Russian disinformation, just like this.
Okay. So that was Politico. I forgot. I don't know what year that was, but he's got the screen cap. That's one of the amazing things about the current situation that we're in, is that these people try to gaslight us and they try to make us the prisoners of the moment. You know what prisoner of the moment means? Prisoner of the moment means that they want you to completely forget about the past. So, for example, you got all these millennials and zillennials saying that LeBron James is this is such a terrible analogy, but we'll have to go with it. No. Here's a better analogy about prisoner of the moment, right? You got Thomas Edward Patrick Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time. And then you have, he's been doing this for literally 23 years, right? And then you've got Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes has like one or two good seasons. He does some magic trick with the ball. And then everybody's like, oh my God, Patrick Mahomes is the greatest of all time. Like, we're supposed to forget all the amazing feats that Tom Brady has done because we've got this shiny thing right in front of us. So this is what these people do, is they will say all this craziness and then they will expect you to be a prisoner of the moment. Just look at what's in front of you. Don't look at the bigger picture. So what's great about shows like Jimmy Dore, etc., and what's great about the internet is that we can screen cap you in time and we can remember what the hell you were telling us for quite some time. And I think shout out to the Wheeze. Yes, you finally caught a live stream. Good to have you, buddy. Here we go. Here we are, dear listener. This was you guys, Politico, a year ago, a year and a half ago, 2 years. I don't remember when. Now, I can tell you, dear listener, we have a Facebook channel, facebook.com/America Middle. And it's a free speech environment, okay? And we have, you guys know, just like in the chat, we have left-wing, right-wing, anarchists, libertarians, liberals, neoliberals, progressives, yada, yada, yada. And everybody just puts a hodgepodge in there. People dump articles, and then everybody goes to war, and then, whatever. During the election cycle, anytime somebody posted something about the laptop that was not favorable to Biden, Facebook went out and took it out. They would delete it, and then you would get a notification if you were a moderator. Obviously, I'm the owner of the channel. And then we actually have an army of moderators for such a small Facebook channel. You know why? Because eventually Facebook began to punish us and make us approve every single article and every single post that were posted. So if you posted and said, hey, just went to Starbucks, what's up, Middle America? Somebody, I or a mod, would have to post that around the time. And then as soon as Biden got elected, all that shit got lifted. I kid you not. Okay? So that's a fact. That's how it was. That's what they did during the entire time this whole laptop controversy was raging. We continue.
Well, it was the election year, so you can't risk.
So it was right before the election, so they did censorship. So Glenn Greenwald quit The Intercept over it.
They did. They absolutely censored us. And for a while, I was certain that our Facebook channel was gone, was going to go, because they'll send these little red triangles to you, and you're like, oh my God, and they'll tell you like your channel is at risk. Your channel is at risk because of this stuff. Like, it's no joke. So absolutely, they were suppressing speech at that point in time.
Twitter shut down the New York Post Twitter feed, and the story got suppressed. It was taken off Facebook, everywhere. It was supposed to be a fake story. Dozens of former intelligence officials say that the Hunter Biden's it's Russian disinformation. Wow, dozens of intelligence officials say this? That's how you know it's extra not true.
Unbelievable.
It's like an inverse proportion.
Yes.
As we're up in the dozens, that's the less true it becomes.
So, get this. This is a new story. This is a story from, what's the date on? March 16th. Hunter Biden paid tax bill, but broad federal investigation continues. The Justice Department inquiry into the business dealings of the president's son has remained active, with a grand jury seeking information about payments from around the world. So he's big. It was so true that they're investigating him. But wait a minute, it gets better. First of all, Hunter paid his tax bill, it says. Come on. Why keep kicking a guy when he's down? Just leave the man to his art.
Now, remember, I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but there was a very strange back and forth between Rachel Maddow. I'm going to try to find it. It was a back and forth between Rachel Maddow and Chuck Schumer, where Chuck Schumer was talking about Trump messing with the intelligence agency. I don't know if you guys remember that, but I'll try to find it. So all these intelligence agents, all these ex-CIA guys were saying, hey, no, this is just Russian propaganda. This is Russian propaganda. That's all it is. And I hope we're starting to see the pattern, guys. And obviously, if you're a middle American, you probably already see the pattern. Anything that is cast the Democratic Party, and I'm being very careful not to say the left-wing party, because the very little that I know about politics, particularly domestic politics in America, the very fraction of the little bits of information that I know about how this all works is that the current Democratic Party is not a left-wing organization, outlet, political group, whatever you want to call it. They're not. Their treatment of Bernie Sanders since 2016 should make that patently obvious. Okay, so don't hear me saying anything that is against the left is suppressed. No, anything that is against the Democratic Party and their aspirations is now Russian propaganda. All you have to do is stick Russian propaganda, and then you'll be fine. So if you say, I think NATO and the Americans played a provocative role, an instigatory role in this conflict, that's Russian propaganda. I cannot tell you guys how many times in the comment section or in email people have been saying to me, Vin, you're spouting Russian propaganda. And I say, well, what is Russian propaganda? Like, what exactly am I saying to be a propagandist? I don't want to be a mouthpiece for Putin. And then they say, you keep talking about NATO. Okay, we're disagreeing. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm spouting Russian propaganda. But now this is a cudgel that's been used over and over and over again. Anything that makes the narrative from CNN and MSNBC, and in this particular case, in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, all of that is Russian propaganda. So when we were talking about Hunter's laptop, now, to be honest with you, I didn't really pay a lot of attention to Hunter's laptop during that entire controversy, because to me, the biggest story was Biden going over there and blackmailing this guy to the tune of $2 billion. That, to me, was the biggest story. But I didn't pay a lot of attention to the laptop situation, so here we are.
A Navy veteran, Ukraine oilman, just paint in peace.
That's the most interesting man in the world.
So here's the story that just came out in the New York Times. Watch this. People familiar with the investigation said prosecutors had examined emails between Mr. Biden, Mr. Archer, and others about Burisma and other foreign businesses' activities. Those emails were obtained by the New York Times from a cache of files that appears to have come from a laptop abandoned by Mr. Biden in a Delaware repair shop. I was told that was Russian disinformation.
There you go. There you go. That's Russian propaganda. And now they're saying, no, it's not propaganda, that's true. Now, remember, we talked about this. The New York Times also broke the story about the CDC leaving out a large chunk. I think it was like from 24 to like 59, the largest chunk of the demographics of vaccine efficacy or whatever it was that we reported on when the New York Times broke that. And the CDC said, yeah, that information wasn't ready for prime time. And then they said, we didn't want people to interpret it incorrectly, so we held on to that data. But we published the other data with the giant gap in the demographic research. We published that, but The other ones, you guys are too stupid. You wouldn't. So now that the New York Times, I've got a lot of friends. I got a friend in this chat that was saying that. I got a lot of friends that were telling me, no, the CDC is a political organization just like anything else, and they curate what they send to you and what they don't send to you. And I said, that's nonsense. Where's the proof? And they said, well, if they were curating it, how could I get you proof? And I said, well, then how could you know? Because that's how my mind works. I'll stay on a particular position that to me, I'll apply Occam's razor or whatnot. And if it sounds more accurate, I'm going to stay with that. So I had a friend that was pleading with me over and over again. I said, get me the freaking information. DJ never got to me. Well, the New York Times published it, and I changed my mind. But here's the question. If my friend would have jumped on Twitter or Facebook and published that, he would have gotten suspended, right? Or kicked off Twitter, right? I mean, subhanAllah, the New York Times posted. I don't really know what the algorithm is. So the New York Post posts about the laptop. They get suspended from Twitter. New York Times posts it, and I agree. I think New York Times probably has a lot more credibility than the New York Post. But you guys see what I'm saying here. To me, this story really isn't about Hunter Biden, okay? The story to me is about how the media is once again in bed with politics and politicians, and now the intelligence agencies are now involved in this. And let me tell you something about intelligence agencies. They run what's known as psychological operations all the time. But, and this is going to sound massively cynical. Shout out to Amy Lee. This is going to sound massively cynical, guys. But I don't want our intelligence agencies doing psyops on us. I want them doing psyops on our enemies. I don't like the concept of the CIA doing psyops on its own people. So I don't like the idea that dozens and dozens of these guys jumped on and opined on this in the first place. I'm not a fan of that, because being from the agency, people, you just get you get automatic credibility because it's one of the most distinguished organizations in the United States. Let me put it that way. And if you really thought about the job of these individuals, part of you should say, well, wait a second, shouldn't I disbelieve just as a principle until they prove it definitively, considering the entire outfit is based on intelligence and the manipulation and use thereof, and the fact that these guys really don't report to the president because the president cycles out every 4 years or whatnot. So who holds these people accountable? Who fact checks the CIA? I don't know. I got questions. I just got questions. But now the New York Times has told us, so now we're allowed to believe it, and other people now are allowed to believe it, and I guess report on it, that the laptop was actually legitimate. Subhanallah. Okay, we continue.
They fired Glenn Greenwald, had to leave The Intercept over there.
Glenn Greenwald. Yeah, and again, Glenn Greenwald is, I think to this day, Mr. Greenwald has to have an armed guard on his staff to take care of his family. He's got a husband and a couple kids. One of the folks on his team over there in South America actually paid the ultimate price for journalistic integrity, and she was killed, I believe. So Glenn Greenwald, but of course now Mr. Greenwald is currently contradicting a lot of the Ukraine-Russia madness, and so he's not reporting in line with the zeitgeist, because he was one of those who believed, like everybody else who was an expert in the region until 3 or 4 weeks ago, that our expansion, our eastward expansion into NATO, was going to be seen as aggressive and instigatory by not only the Russian government, but by Russian people themselves who familiarize themselves with geopolitics, that this was going to be universally looked upon as an aggressive action. And now that's not really there. So now he's being marginalized as a crazy person. Jimmy Dore is marginalized. Now Jimmy Dore is right wing. Glenn Greenwald is right wing. Everybody's right wing. Tucker Carlson is a Russian propagandist. He's getting paid off by the Russians. The ruble is worth about 1 cent now, because as we have been bragging, Psaki and Biden himself, we were bragging, we crushed the German economy. So the ruble is worth a penny, but that's when Tucker decides he's going to be a mouthpiece for the Russians. So Glenn Greenwald. The reason I brought up Glenn Greenwald was to say this is a guy who, in my opinion, has earned the right to assume believability, because he's got he literally put his life on the line for his journalistic integrity. He also put his freedom on the line. A couple of years ago, they're about to throw this man in jail forever over there in South America. So this is a guy who has peak. In my opinion, he has peak level journalistic integrity. And so he wanted to report on the Hunter Biden story, and they wouldn't let him. They wouldn't let him. So that's why he quit. That is massive. Massive. We continue.
They shut down New York Post Twitter feed over that. Or was it the Daily News? Whatever. They shut down a newspaper's Twitter feed over it. The email and others in the cache were authenticated by people familiar with them and with the investigation. Can you imagine you're the vice president's son, you leave a fucking laptop at a repair shop full of sensitive information about your corrupt business dealings?
Yeah, like the least bad thing on your laptop is the homemade crack
pornos.
Smoking.
Yeah.
What job porn you made.
That's the least, that's the
that's the least embarrassing.
I gotta say, I'm not a fan of mocking his drug habit. We worked in a ministry for a couple of years with folks who were addicted to substances. It killed too many people in our circle. So I'm not really a fan of that. I hope Hunter Biden gets the help that he needs. But I'm not going to let that obscure the point. I'm just saying, let's not lose our humanity. Don't let it obscure the point, though. This man had a laptop, and obviously there's some shit on. Listen, man, if the laptop was just family pictures and, I don't know, his itinerary, or maybe pictures of him with his lady friend, if that was a sum total of what was on the laptop, I don't think there would have been this heavy sort of push to invalidate the information that they found on said laptop. Do what you will with that, dear listener. Do what you will with that.
Part of the.
So here it is. Hunter Biden's infamous laptop confirmed in New York Times report.
Unbelievable.
The New York Times now admits the Biden laptop, falsely called Russian disinformation, is actually authentic. And here's the story now that
Here's Sean. Okay, Sean. Middle America is not an echo chamber. So Sean retorts and says, you may be opposed to us marking his drug use, but you must remember that his father authored the anti-drug bills. He is a poster child for somebody that his father put in prison for 20 years. Okay, that is fair. That is fair. That's a fair criticism. It does display Hunter's privilege. And so I got to give it to you. There. I agree with you there. The casual, Alec Ashmore says, the casual Russophobia ingrained into America by our media since the 50s is wild. Local cafe I like removed black Russians and Moscow mules from their cocktail menu in solidarity with Ukraine, which is once again also an act of Russian erasure, because again, there are literally millions of Ukrainian-born folks who identify with Russia and Russians in the Donbass regions, Odessa, etc., etc. But yeah, this Russophobic look. I think what happens is they have a plan for geopolitics or whatnot, and so they put all this Russophobia as a political tool into the ether, and I don't think that they're anticipating the fallout of this psychological contagion where everybody now starts. You would never be able to do this. Like, let's say like there was like an African cuisine or whatever. You wouldn't be able to dump out all your African cuisine and take it all out in solidarity with America if because of those soldiers that got killed in Niger. Terrible in that, but you get my point. Like, the Russian people now, it is okay to have racial or anti-nationalist or whatever you want to put it against all Russian people now. Well, we get to throw out vodka and all the rest of it, and change the names of certain foods. I thought we had evolved past that, but we haven't. We continue. We continue.
Reporting it. You ready? More than 54. So that's why you don't listen to fact checkers, people who call themselves fact checker, like factcheck.org and PolitiFact and Snopes. Those people are just assholes with an axe to grind, and they're paid by somebody with a bias.
Walaikum assalam. Ya ibn Asrafel. But yeah, I mean, we've done this. We've done exposés on PolitiFact. We've exposed how they purposely fact checked to make you think a certain way about certain topics. We don't need to get into it here, but we've done that. Again, these are all forms of what I called soft authoritarianism. Who gave PolitiFact or Snopes and all the rest? Who gave them the golden? How are they the final court of arbitration for all truth? I don't understand that. And again, I don't trust any outlet that yells about a lie and whispers about a correction. Okay? So for example, I don't care about Trump's rhetoric. I never cared about Trump's rhetoric. People were saying, listen, man, Trump's rhetoric can metastasize into the real world as something physically bad. And I say, And then January 6th happened. I shot a video and I said, holy shit, I was wrong. There are times when Trump's rhetoric can actually metastasize into the real world. And so I shot an entire 45-minute video on it. And I made sure to pin posts that were saying, I told you so. Because to me, that's part of integrity. You know what happens with CNN is they will yell the lie and then whisper the correction. So the big lie was about Snake Island. You had Anderson Cooper, who was all crying because of Snake Island folks. It was very, very inspiring. F you, Russian warship, and they all died, and there was just like a moment of silence, and oh my God, these guys are so horrible. Then we find out the Snake Island folks are completely fine. They surrendered due to lack of weapons, it said. And I had to information mine CNN to find that story. So they yelled about an untruth, and then they whispered about the correction. So anytime an outlet or an agency does that, I go, okay, this is about your ego. This is about advertising dollars. This is not about communicating the truth to us. I don't have a problem saying I'm wrong because I don't own the truth. The truth doesn't originate with me, dear listener. One of our saints said we can't do anything for or against the truth. The truth is inevitable and it's invincible. So if I say something that doesn't comport to the truth, I'm going to correct it so that I can be in line with reality. I don't own it. I don't own this information, dear listener. Here we go.
They're not fact checkers. They're propagandists. CNN are propagandists.
They
MSNBC are propagandists. PolitiFact is propagandist. Factcheck.org are propagandists. PBS is a propagandist. Snopes is propaganda. Anybody who calls themselves an official fact checker.
Delaney, I'm not going to tell how. Delaney is she's a zillennial. Shout out to Delaney. She's the future leaders of our country. I'll tell you that right now. I recently learned about freedom fries. That's correct. We had freedom fries, not French fries, because the French dared to say, well, I don't know about all this aggression, America. So immediately we were told that the French hated freedom because they didn't want to, they were critical of our violent reaction to 9/11 against people that had absolutely nothing to do with it. So we couldn't call them French fries anymore because France was against freedom because our president had said, you're either with us or you're with the terrorists. So it was the same rhetorical device, only coming from the right side now with the Republican Party. And I don't even know if actual right-leaning, right-wing people would even claim that the Republican Party was right. But now you couldn't say French fries. You had to say freedom fries because the French hated freedom. So anybody that was against what we were doing hated freedom. And so now anybody that's against what these folks are putting out, the people who, if you will not eat what they're serving to you on a platter, it's because you're a Russian propagandist. We continue.
Is a propagandist. That's how you know. They call themselves fact checkers.
Even at sciencechange.org, even their fact checker.
Allahu Akbar.
So more than 50 former senior intelligence officials have signed on to a letter outlining their belief that recent disclosure of emails allegedly belonging to Joe Biden's son has all the classic earmarks of Russian disinformation operation.
Here we go.
Really? That's funny. It turns out those earmarks of Russian disinformation have all the dick prints of CIA lies. Isn't that weird?
Earmarks have dick prints.
Delaney, cover your ears. But, guys, here we go. 50 former senior intel officials. Okay, so this could be NSA, CIA. It could be a whole bunch of different alphabet groups, okay? It doesn't necessarily have to be the agency. 50 former senior intelligence officials have signed on to a letter outlining their belief that the recent disclosure of emails allegedly belonging to Joe Biden's son has all the classic earmarks of a Russian disinformation operation. 50 of them. You know what's interesting? Check this out, dear listener. Jimmy, we're going to have to take a break from you for 1 second. Here's 440. Let me get back. So here we go. I want you guys to see something because this is very, very important. And, you know, Jimmy reported on this, and I initially didn't believe him. I was like, I got to verify this shit. But here we go. Here's Chuck Schumer during the Trump administration, and listen very closely to what he says. And again, this shows you what they think about us as a populace, and unfortunately in this particular situation, they were right. Amy says, no wonder they are former. Check this out, guys.
This challenge.
Let me ask you, I don't know if you have seen this. I don't want to blindside you with this. This is the latest statement, latest tweet, as you were just saying. President-elect's latest unsolicited pronouncement on the intelligence community. This was his tweet just a little while ago tonight. You see the scare quotes there. The intelligence briefing on so-called Russian hacking was delayed until Friday. Perhaps more time needed to build a case. Very strange.
Okay, so one of the things about Trump was that he was one of the first, he's the first one in my lifetime that directly took on the intelligence apparatus in the United States. Questioned their veracity, and if not directly accused, heavily implied that they were acting politically just like anybody and everybody else. Okay? So that is what he tweeted. Now listen very closely. Listen very closely. Shout out to AT. Listen very closely to how Chuck Schumer responds to Rachel in this situation.
Danger is opportunity.
Intelligence briefing on so-called Russian hacking was delayed until Friday. Perhaps more time needed to build a case. Very strange. We're actually told, intelligence sources tell NBC News since this tweet has been posted, that actually this intelligence briefing for the president-elect was always planned for Friday. It hasn't been delayed. But he's taking these shots, this antagonism, this taunting to the intelligence community.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
What do you think?
Hey, man, you take on the intelligence community, there's 6 ways from Sunday for them to get at you. Well, what the hell is that supposed to mean, Mr. Schumer? Are you telling me that nobody is immune from retaliatory attacks? Not even the President of the United States? Should you dare to question the integrity or the veracity of information coming from the, quote, intelligence community? This man said that on broad daylight in prime time. We live in a free country? Huh? Again, there are serious concerns, obviously, with Donald Trump. If you have a serious concern with Trump, there's serious concerns with Biden. If you're against Biden, okay. But beyond that, I don't care who the president is. This man, who's a career politician, this guy's been in the game for probably more than twice my lifetime, came on the number one, I think Maddow, before she had her meltdown, was like the number one spot in cable news, at least top 5 for that time period. Let's say it that way, right? And said that if you screw with the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday to get you, about the most powerful man on the planet Earth, the President of the United States. What does that imply for the rest of us? Donald Trump is like literally the pinnacle and the epitome of privilege, right? Billionaire, politician. I mean, he hits literally every single marker of privilege. And Mr. Schumer got on TV and said, "Oh, you don't cross the intelligence community." All he did was put out a tweet and ask a question. That is extremely, extremely disturbing. Let's play that part again. That's
Perhaps
really
more time
disturbing.
needed to build a case. Very strange. We're actually told, intelligence sources tell NBC News since this tweet has been posted, that actually this intelligence briefing for the president-elect was always planned for Friday. It hasn't been delayed. But he's taking these shots, this antagonism, this taunting to the intelligence community.
Look at this.
Take on the intelligence community. They have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
Unbelievable.
What do you think the intelligence community would do if they were motivated?
I don't know, but from what I am told, they are very upset with how he has treated them and talked about them. And we need the intelligence community.
They're very upset about how they've... The intelligence community is very upset about how he's treated them and talked about them. Dear listener, all of us have jobs. All of us have been mistreated by management. People talk to us any type of way if you're in food service, yada, yada, yada. When you're in food service, dear listener, and somebody says something horrible about, the French fries you prepared or whatever it was, you don't go and put cyanide in the French fries and say, "Oh, I don't like the way that you treated me." You still suck it up and do your job. That's life. But these intelligence folks, "Oh, Donald Trump said something bad about me, so we're going to make him pay." Chuck Schumer said that. I didn't say that. Tucker Carlson didn't say that. Some right-wing crazy person in his mom's basement, a tinfoil hat, didn't say that, dear listener. That should have terrified all of us. You do that to Trump, then who am I? Or who are you? All right, so let's go back. So we're watching. So this was the same intelligence agency that told us, they all signed a letter, former NSA, DIA, CIA people, right? They all signed a letter. It said, "Oh, this has all the classic earmarks of a Russian propaganda, whatever."
Hunter Biden's story is right by to you. Isn't that weird?
Earmarks have dick prints.
Oh, God.
The letter signed on Monday centers around a batch of documents released by the New York Post last week that purport to tie the Democratic nominee. This is this story that they ran before. That's all propaganda. This is the story. What is this story from? This is from October 19th, 2020. This is how they were lying to everyone.
A month before
to make
the election,
them think the opposite of the truth for a political reason. That's what the establishment media does. This is political, lying to you, saying that this true story about the President Biden and his son was Russian disinformation when it was actual information, and everybody fucking knew it.
For everybody that just jumped on, what we're talking about here is the New York Times admission that the Hunter Biden laptop was actually a legitimate story completely. And what we were discussing is how all last year, about a year and a half ago, the party line from CNN, MSNBC, Twitter, Facebook was that this was false. It was a Russian psyop. Anybody who said anything about Hunter's laptop, it was Russian propaganda. And so what we're talking about is how the media is triangulating with certain aspects of our government and intelligence agencies to wage psychological warfare on the American public so as to get us to think only in one direction. It's unidirectional, univocal thinking and speaking, and we're not being given the opportunity to make up our own minds. So that's really the discussion. The discussion really is not about Hunter Biden as much as it is a discussion about the triangulation of media with the government, and sometimes the third point being the military industrial complex, and other times it's the intelligence agencies who, as Chuck Schumer said, probably had a personal vendetta against Mr. Trump because of how he was treating them.
And so this is their bullshit story. Email under the banner headline Biden's secret emails. The Post reported it was given a copy of Hunter Biden's laptop hard drive by President Donald Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, who said he got it from a Mac shop owner in Delaware who also alerted the FBI. By the way, so while the letter's signatories presented no new evidence, they said their no new evidence.
It's just the same old Hunter Biden.
Unbelievable.
Same old Hunter Biden corruption thing.
Unbelievable.
They said their national security experience had made them deeply suspicious that the Russian government played a significant role in the case, and cited several elements of the story that suggested the Kremlin's hand in the work. Wow. They just got a feeling. That's all that is. They
Just
got
a feeling.
If we are right, they added, this is a Russian trying to influence how Americans vote in the election, and we believe strongly that Americans need to be aware of this. If we are right, wow, if we are right, this is huge. But if we are wrong, we are fucking censors and doing the work of the Ministry of Truth.
Pravda, ladies and gentlemen. Now, some of this stuff is funny, but some of this stuff is... the more and more that goes off into the ether from authoritative sources like the agency or like CNN or like Rachel Maddow, the more that kind of propaganda gets put out into the ether from all these different angles, the less and less the public is armed psychologically against disinformation, and the more inclined they are to hysterical Red Scare Russophobic propaganda, to where you're talking about setting up a DOJ department to deal specifically with Russian shills like Tucker Carlson, who is so poor he needs the Russian ruble, which is valued at like 2 cents right now, and other characterless individuals who have no integrity or bravery, such as Tulsi Gabbard, who's dedicated 15 years of her life to this country and has been deployed numerous times. But we continue. We're talking about putting those people in jail. Okay? That does not happen in a free country like America overnight. You don't get to talk about something like that explicitly on national television in front of millions of people, or being a Twitter follower. You don't get to do that overnight. The soil has to be prepared, dear listener. And look, do I believe that there's like one guy that said, let's plant the Russophobic shit? No, what I believe is that the Democratic Party and the Democratic media miscalculated during the 2016 election, and that Trump was not something that they had forecasted, and that using the Russia angle because Trump is an oligarch, and so he's had relationship with Putin, and we've always had a kind of hostile, antagonistic relationship with Russia. So what I believe is that they used this silly Russia angle to demonize the president and hopefully have that metastasize into an impeachment so that they could reset the deck to have folks in office who were supposed to be in office. That's what I believe. But then the more and the more that happened over the years, the more all of this went into the ether as far as the Russophobia, the fear of Russians and all the rest of it. And then they began to see how easily swayed people were when all you had to do was press the Russia trigger. All you had to do was press the Russia trigger, and it looked like people were following along with it, especially when they were able to employ the big tech companies to stifle channels, stifle the New York Post. Everybody got their heads cut off for this thing, and now they're using it to their own ends. That's what it looks like to me. I don't think anybody sat back and thought about this and planned this out for 5 years or whatever. I don't think that that's what happened. What I do think what happened is that they let that demon out of the box, as it were, and they started to see how effective it was, and now they're using it for everything. That's what it looks like to me. We continue.
And it turns out you were wrong. And you guys committed a sin against the First Amendment in the United States, which is freedom of speech. Nick Shapiro, a former top aide under CIA Director John Brennan, provided Politico with a letter on Monday. He noted that the IC leaders who have signed this letter worked for the past 4 presidents, including Trump. The real power here, however, is in the number of former working-level intelligence community officers who want the American people to know that, once again, Russians are interfering. So that's called CIA propaganda that the Politico was repeating verbatim.
At this point, guys, if you hear something from the agency, you should just be inclined to not believe it. Now, again, I didn't comment on this and I didn't report on this a lot because I didn't care about Hunter's laptop because what Biden did was just so nakedly crazy to me. And it was obvious that there was quid pro quo. And it was obviously a conflict of interest and all the rest of it, as far as Biden going over to Ukraine and blackmailing them to the tune of $2 billion to fire a prosecutor. That's crazy to me. And the fact that his son ostensibly benefited from it, people were telling me to just shut my eyes to that and say that there's no correlation. I'm not that guy. I did not pay attention to this story, but there you go. You got Brennan's lackey, and John Brennan was like at the top of the hill for a very long time in the CIA. His lackey goes and personally delivers this to Politico. Personally.
So you understand why guys like me have a show with over 1 million viewers is because people at Politico repeat CIA and State Department talking points uncritically, and they're propagandists on purpose.
If this is how hard the former CIA people work, can you imagine what the actual ones do?
And who wrote this? This is by Natasha Bertrand. So Natasha Bertrand, super big propagandist, manufacturer of consent, and liar to her own readers. For Russians at this point, with Trump down in the polls, there is incentive for Moscow to pull out the stops to do anything possible to help Trump win or to weaken Biden should he win. And the letter says a laptop op fits the bill, as the publication of the emails are clearly designed to discredit Biden. Wow.
A classic laptop op.
Classic.
Remember this at the debate?
It's true about Russia, Ukraine, China, other countries, Iraq. If this is true, then he's a corrupt politician.
Right.
So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby. Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politician.
Nobody.
President Trump, I want to stay on the issue of race. We're talking about the issue.
I'm sure you do.
President Trump, we're talking about race right now.
I'm sure you want to stay on the issue of race, man.
And I have to respond to that.
Please.
Because look,
Very
there are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plan. They have said that this has all the 5 former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now the Russia hoax?
That's exactly what.
Is this
that's
where you're
exactly
going?
what.
This is
told.
where he's going. The laptop is Russia.
Gentlemen, I want to stay on the issue of race.
You
okay?
have to be kidding. Here we
Mr.
go
President,
again with Russia.
We're going to.
By the way, why would Russia want Trump to win since they want to go in Ukraine? Like, didn't it work out way better for them for Biden to win?
Remember, Trump had armed Zelensky. That was the entire point of the phone call. The entire point of the phone call, the entire reason that our president got impeached was that he was withholding weapons from the Ukrainians, which he eventually gave to them anyway. So that's not a pro-Russia. That wasn't a pro-Russia move to arm those Ukrainians. So Kurt's right. Like, isn't it better for him that they
could
yes
go right in?
Yes. Virtually every liberal outlet except
Alex says, I'm gonna go to my boss and tell him the intelligence community said that I deserve a raise. And you could tell your boss, Alec, that the intelligence community can make him pay 6 ways from Sunday if he doesn't stop treating you this way. And make you pay.
To their credit, the New York Times spread this CIA lie and lied about what these officials said. They admitted they had no evidence for their suspicion. Look at this campaign ad masquerading as reporting that Huffington Post did. You ready for this?
Yes.
Watch this. Watch this.
Oh my gosh. You hear the music? Unbelievable.
With Trump down, can you turn it down? With Trump down in the polls, there is incentive for Moscow to pull out the stops and do anything possible. The New York Post published what it claimed were emails obtained from the Hunter Biden's laptop. However, many news outlets could not verify the legitimacy of the Post report. President Donald Trump has used Hunter Biden's work on the board of Burisma to politically attack Joe Biden.
His work?
His work. His work.
People sit on boards. Hey,
people sit on boards. He's doing work.
His work on Burisma. Wasn't he getting like $40K a month to just sit there on Burisma? Do what? I don't know. I don't know. Shout out to Hunter. Listen, shout out to Hunter Biden. Okay. Hey, if you can get money, bro. Do it up, bro. But holy moly.
So that was from the Huffington Post, and that was put out literally as a news segment. That's not a.
That is the psyop, ladies and gentlemen. It wasn't the Russian stuff. This is the psyop. You use art, the music. You've got some sort of ominous dum da dum da dum dum da dum da dum. Okay, and whoa, something important is being said here. And then, of course, it's a Russian op. Unbelievable.
News segment.
Well, I'm surprised that HuffPo would end up being crab.
That's 100% propaganda. And they're afraid of YouTubers and Joe Rogan. Again, the biggest liars and misinformers are always the government. The next is the corporate media. That's who the liars are. And then Putin.
More Russian disinformation. You better be careful, because Keith Olbermann might say that you need to be dealt with militarily. And no, dear listener, Mr. Olbermann has not had his Twitter privileges revoked or suspended for not implying but directly saying we need to deal with Tucker Carlson and Tulsi Gabbard militarily. And Mr. Dore here, who just crossed that million view threshold, he may also get dealt with militarily, and so may you. because I kind of disagree with Jimmy here, where he goes, "Oh, but they're worried about YouTubers as if that's not very powerful." Oh, no. They are terrified of us because now people are starting to figure out, another horrible analogy, guys, but back in the day when I was a kid in high school in New York City, you could jam somebody up pretty easily. You just had to know what train they were taking, yada, yada, yada. And you could jam somebody up. You take your box cutter and, get busy, do whatever. New York City now, especially in the inner city, is so flooded with surveillance that you can't get away with shit. And on top of that, everybody now is a mini journalist. You can't shoot anyone. You can't stab anyone. You can't give anybody you can't cut anyone. You can't do anything without being seen. So now what's happening with these people is that our parents, bless their hearts, they were beholden to information like Rachel Maddow or Tucker or whatever, and that's all they could do. But now information is so ubiquitous, and sometimes you get raw, unfiltered information right from the source as the actual news itself is happening. So now you got a bunch of people saying, you lied to us. You lied to us about CDC. You lied to us. You lied to us about the laptop situation. What else are you lying about? And then what happens is you go back in time and you find the people that were saying these people are lying to you, and instantly they get more credibility than the established news network. And that's why you got a guy like Joe Rogan who could literally be lighting up ganja on his set, and folks still take what he has to say way more seriously than what you have to say. So they're absolutely terrified of YouTube channels for that reason.
Okay, watch. Here's what Glenn Greenwald said. The objections to noting all of this today are drearily predictable. Reporting on Hunter Biden is irrelevant since he was not himself a candidate. What made the reporting relevant was what it revealed about the involvement of Joe Biden in these deals. Given the war in Ukraine, now is not the time to discuss all of this, despite the fact that they are usually ignored. There are always horrific wars being waged, even if the victims are not as sympathetic as European Ukrainians, and the perpetrators are the films of good guys and not the bad guys.
Film's good guys,
are the films good guys and not the bad guys. The real reason most liberals and their media allies do not want to hear about any of this is because they believe that the means they use deliberately, lying to the public with CIA disinformation, are justified by their noble ends.
Correct.
Defeating Trump. So
Correct.
The reason why no one cares about that, everybody that they lied and censored and suppressed about Hunter's laptop, is because they believe their lying is noble.
Correct. I was just watching John Hirschmeyer, I think it is, and he was talking about why our politicians lie. And he was talking about a noble lie, like the few times in our history where you had a noble lie. And the one that he brought up, I thought was very fascinating, was Kennedy met with Khrushchev, and Khrushchev said, look, you guys, we got missiles in Cuba. That makes you uncomfortable. Here's the thing, though. You guys got missiles over there in Turkey. So how about you remove the Turkish missiles and we'll remove the Cuban missiles, and then we can call it good and we can end this missile crisis. Okay? Because remember, dear listener, we were about to spark World War III because the Russians importing these missiles to Cuba, which is, I think, 60 miles away, doesn't border the United States, but was a violation of what we call the Monroe Doctrine, which is basically the West will never be threatened by anybody in the West. We will take you out. We'll go to war, whatever. That's the Reader's Digest version of the Monroe Doctrine. So when we were threatened, not with weapons at our border, but with weapons that could get to us, we almost sparked World War III. So the Russians met with us and said, well, you guys are threatening us via Turkey by proxy, and we're threatening you with Cuba by proxy. So how about we just pull back and call it good? And you know what Kennedy said? Kennedy said, yeah, that makes a lot of rational sense. Here's the thing, though. I cannot be looked upon by my media as kowtowing to you at all, because Russia has been completely demonized in the Western world. So we will do this. We will get this deal done. But if somebody asks me about it, I am going to lie. And sure enough, it got leaked. And Mr. Kennedy said, no, I don't know what you're talking about. But in the back office, us and Khrushchev, we're working on doing that. And so all of us are here to this day. Shout out to Mr. Kennedy. So John Hirschmeyer was saying that is a noble lie. Okay? But those lies are few and far in between and are exceptional. And to this moment, I am not sure that Mr. Kennedy did the right thing. I think if Mr. Kennedy would have got up there in the media and said, hey, this is the way we're going to end this crisis. I'm sure all you guys are done with your kids having to do these drills and be traumatized and sit under their desks and all the rest of it. So here's what I'm going to do to end this crisis. But there had been so much Russophobia in the ether in America, in the Western world, that he couldn't even be seen as coming to any sort of compromise with the Russians. So he, quote, had to lie. I wish Kennedy would have said, no, I'm not going to lie. I made this deal and it's in the best interest for the entire world. But here we go. These people are taking that principle and peanut butter spreading that shit all over anytime they don't believe that we're big enough to handle the truth, they lie to us. And the reason they don't feel bad about it is because they have this paternalistic understanding of the American populace, that we're too dumb to vote in our best interest. So they truly believed that the reason that Trump got elected is because the lower class, the unwashed masses, the deplorables, whatever you want to call them, are not smart enough to vote for the right person. So when all this horrible information comes out, and they were all traumatized by the James Comey effect, where, I don't know, a week before the elections, Hillary's corruption got brought up again. The emails got leaked and all the rest of it. And then James Comey said what he said. And a bunch of people who are on the fence were like, yo, I'm out. This woman is way too corrupt. So ever since that happened, the Democratic apparatus, which is not the left-wing apparatus, as we said earlier in the show, did everything they could to make sure to control the flow of information, because you're too dumb to vote properly. So they believe they're being virtuous. Watch all MSNBC. I'll never forget it. This is actually when I started watching MSNBC, was after Trump got elected. And Michael Moore was on there, and he was saying, listen, us elites, us millionaires, us, Wall Street people, we need to understand how these people think. And the response was, no, we don't. They're wrong. So there was no, we need to understand how those people think. Nope. And one of them went as far as to say, well, they need to understand how we think. Poor Michael Moore was like, what the hell? We're what % of the population? This is how they think. This is how they think. They want to curate information to you because you're not going to make the right political decision. Unbelievable.
Because they're fighting an evil enemy, and it's okay to lie about Hitler.
Is this from Glenn's new publication, No Shit magazine? Oh, no shit.
This is at his no shit stack.
Yeah. I mean, those obviously, they're kind of open about that the greater good. It's not a lie if it's for the right reasons, and it's not violence if it's for the right reasons, and it's noble.
It's noble.
Yeah.
The noble lie.
It's good. It's the Christian thing to do. All right. Glenn Den says, this is a story I covered from the start because of how much corruption is revealed. The corporate press and big tech used a blatant CIA lie to claim an authentic archive was false. Yes, there's a war going on. There always is. But these events are vital. Matt Taibbi says, I know a lot of people think this is not important. the Hunter Biden story, but solely as a step in our progression to a system of censored news. The suppression of the laptop story was a very big deal. It's become way too easy for intelligence officials to meddle in the news landscape.
Correct. And guys, what I'm about to say is going to be very challenging to some of you. Dear listener, Donald Trump had one of the most successful shows in a very, very long time on his show. Forgot the name of the show. You're fired or whatever. The Apprentice, I think it was the show. Very, very very successful show for a bunch of seasons. Okay? Hillary Clinton invited him to the wedding. This man was a man that appealed to both sides of mainstream media for years. And then the media poisoned your mind to the point where they presented him as such a threat. And they curated the information so as to make this man a caricature of who and what he actually is. Right? And they filled the public with so much hate and fear that the public then adopted this sort of Machiavellian, any means necessary, whatever it is to get rid of this guy. And we were not able to think or see clearly about what was happening around us while that was happening. So I repeat, when Chuck Schumer gets on TV and says, hey, you better not mess with the intelligence agencies because they will retaliate against you. That is unacceptable in a free country, that you have this rogue agency that is massively powerful, that has access to an almost infinite source of wealth, and has the ability to hide what they do, even for FOIA requests. You know, they'll get a redacted FOIA request. It's just a bunch of black bars everywhere. An organization with that much power, where somebody comes out as a spokesman and says, we have the power to screw with you 6 ways to Sunday. That should have set alarm bells off at that moment. But because we were so ate up with Trump derangement syndrome, Trumpophobia, whatever you want to call it, we got so spun out. This guy is Hitler. He's literally Hitler. He's a Nazi. Yada, 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 yada. You guys remember that? So if you have Hitler, you will do anything and everything to get him out. And so these precedents that are set where the CIA has come out and say, yeah, we'll screw with you if you don't bow to us, if you don't bend the knee to us, we don't care who you are. You can be the most powerful person in the world. This man has his hand on the nuclear trigger. That guy is subservient to the CIA. We should have been like, holy shit, what's going on here? We should have all reacted. This is what I'm saying. This story is not about Hunter's laptop per se. I don't think you're going to find anything in that laptop that's more groundbreaking than we already knew. Because obviously I think Joe Biden knows his son, and I don't think that Joe Biden would ever give his son access to anything that's really, truly damaging. Okay? But what happened is our media triangulated with the intelligence agencies to take away our rights, because the entire point of free speech, one of the major goals of free speech, is the free press. And so, as I keep telling you, when that gets compromised, we are no longer able to be informed voters. We're no longer able to be informed decision makers, and where we can apply pressure to our local government. On Tuesday, we've got the ability to go in front of the House, whatever, in our local government to fight for housing for people, right? Because I've got the information as to who's displaced, who's not, yada, yada, yada. So when there's these things are open to the public. I encourage you, by the way, to get involved in some sort of civic action league. I hope we're just not watching YouTube and going, yeah, screw those people. I hope we're actually being active. But I could put certain pressure. My son is on his second or third email to the mayor of our city about what's going on with Ukraine and Russia or whatever. I hope we're being active participants in the political process. But what's happening is, think about how few people are actual active participants in the political process. And then among those few people, the means by which you decide who to pressure, who to vote for, or whatever, is about the information you received, right? If you're going to be an active, informed voter. So think about that. And then think about that in this context here. It is huge. And it's fascinating to me. The storyline of all of this was the Russians are working to plant information on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and using social media in order to plant misinformation about Miss Clinton. And that's how Mr. Trump got elected. And there's no evidence for that. But in reality, it was them who were planting mis and disinformation. Are you trying to tell me that these 50 people had no idea that the laptop was authentic? None of them had any clue. None of them had any contacts in the agency that were working. And notice it was all former, because I don't think you could say a lie like that blatantly while you're in. Okay. But nobody had any information as to whether or not that was a legitimate story. I think the vast majority of those intelligence officers lied and knew they were lying, but wanted to retaliate against Mr. Trump. That's what it looks like to me.
Here's what Aaron Mate says. He says, John Brennan and Jim Clapper signed that letter saying that the laptop wasn't real. It was Russian disinformation. So John Brennan and Jim Clapper signed the letter claiming the Hunter's laptop had all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation. Brennan and Clapper were key figures behind the pivotal January 2017 U.S. intel report on Russiagate. What are the odds that they got that one right?
And again, here's a prisoner moment stuff. You guys told us for 4 or 5 years that about this big Russiagate conspiracy. It wasn't true. Why haven't there been, obviously you can't have news reports equivalent to it because they did it to us for 4.5, 5 years. But why haven't there been stories, headline stories from CNN, MSNBC? Here's what we got wrong. Here's how we got it wrong. There should be at least 2 weeks worth of that information, considering you did that to us for 4 years. Nope. Because we're talking about COVID 4 or 5 months ago, and now we're talking about Russia, Ukraine, and all of us have forgotten because we're the prisoner of the moment right now. And we're always going to be, so long as they can find someone to demonize and hate and stir up emotions to the point where your ability to reason have been suspended. That's what's happening with Putin right now. Our ability to reason has been suspended because it's Putin. He's the worst guy in the world. But a couple years ago, Putin was a bit player to Trump being the worst guy in the world. And to me, and prior to that, it was Saddam was the worst guy in the world. And then prior to Saddam, it was bin Laden was the worst guy in the world. And it didn't matter what you did to justify getting bin Laden. It didn't matter, okay, let's sign the USA Patriot Act, which is chock full of a whole bunch of rights violations, things of that nature. Let's take off our shoes in the airport, yada, yada, yada. Why? Because we're so emotional about what happened on 9/11, they can sneak in and do whatever they want to do. Oh, let's go and have this illegal war. And let's go to war and kill a bunch of innocent people, creating the image of God. Well, normally you wouldn't do that, but they ginned you up with all this fear and hate for Saddam. Right? So let's keep everybody inside. Well, are all doctors saying that? There seems to be a whole contingent of doctors who are saying, well, maybe the elderly and those at risk in the risk category should, but the rest of us, if you're relatively healthy, you ought to be able to have a combination of herd immunity and a vaccinated populace. That was sort of a middle road that a lot of the great whatever declaration was signed. But no, we couldn't hear about that. That was all misinformation. We only had one narrative because COVID was the bad guy. And anybody that was saying anything else was spouting disinformation and misinformation. Now here we are with Putin. It's the same thing. It's getting us emotional so that we can't think about what they're doing.
Is that where they're getting their earmarks from the other thing that wasn't a thing?
Here's what Jen Psaki says. She's the president's professional liar press secretary. She said back on in October of 2020, Hunter Biden's story is a Russian disinfo, dozens of former intel officials say. Well, guess what? Hunter Biden's infamous laptop confirmed in the New York Times report.
understand how she could. They're saying this. This is what blows me away. They say this. Well, dozens of intel officials do they? How is that credibility to say that?
That's not credible. And you mean a professional liar? You mean the CIA, intelligence officials? You mean people who, as a part of their job description, are professional liars?
I think I'm supposed to imagine Jack Bauer said it. I think that's like the idea. Like I'm supposed to think it's the cast of 24.
Yeah.
Like if people who join this.
Jack Bauer was not an agency guy though. He was CTU was a counterterrorism unit. So Jack Bauer was I think he was a former Delta operator in the story, and then he was a domestic counterterrorist guy. So he was not even an intelligence guy. So there's that.
CIA have good intentions. Anyway,
I mean, just that adds no credence to it.
None.
Unless, like you were just born.
And so this was what was trending. Laptop from hell. That was trending, and it was also twending. We're doing our live stand-up tour.
So there we are, guys. There we are. Again. This is not about Hunter Biden, because quite frankly, I don't think any of us believes that Mr. Biden. Do you really believe that Joe Biden is going to run for re-election? I mean, maybe it's too early to tell, but him and Kamala are so on. I mean, God, Kamala, she's so unpopular. The recent numbers about African Americans who are going to vote don't look good for the Democratic Party. I just have a hard time seeing Biden being able to run again, much less getting reelected. But here's my point. I don't care about. I didn't care back then about Hunter's laptop, and I don't care now about Hunter's laptop. I don't think many of you really care about his laptop. I think we might find some information in there, but I doubt it. The laptop isn't the issue for me. Corrupt politicians are always going to be corrupt politicians, and many times, not all the time, but their children don't fall far from the tree. And quite frankly, to be honest with you, I don't think they know any better. I don't think Hunter Biden knows anything other than to be this way. So I don't really care about the laptop. What I care about is what the media is doing. That's what I care about. I care about what the media is doing and what companies like Facebook and Twitter do in response to that. I was just having this conversation with my wife when I just got back from our little walk. And I said, man, we're in a lot of trouble. We're in a lot of trouble because these guys are able to completely manipulate every aspect of our being. Our thought processes, our emotions are so easily manipulated, and we don't. The biggest problem that I have with us as a public and as a community is that we don't seem to learn from our mistakes. Anytime the media wants to get your emotions into overdrive over a person or an event, you should go in the complete other direction. I am not saying you should completely disbelieve everything the media says. But when you start to see yourself getting ginned up with all this emotional fervor, like how emotional all of us were with Mr. Trump, you can guarantee that the media is doing that to you. So history tells us that we never learn from history. I guess. But it's happening over and over and over and over again. People are telling me, Vladimir Putin's a terrible guy. Dear listener, the Saudis murdered and dismembered Khashoggi. Okay? We all know it was him. We're still dealing with the Saudis. There was no Saudi ban. And yes, the Saudis are currently massacring the Yemeni people, which is known as the worst human rights crisis in the world in the last 50 years. These people are getting starved out. Horrible situations are happening to them. The media is purposely not giving you pictures of starving Yemeni kids. They're purposely leaving that out. Okay? Because that's not a image they want you to see. Okay? So this child, I'm pretty sure, this young, beautiful girl ended up dying. Okay? There you go. That's what a child looks like, probably 2.5, 3 years old, that's starving to death because of the jihad that the Saudis are waging against these beautiful people. And because the Saudis give us oil and there's a trade, there's a little back and forth, we're looking the other way. And sometimes we send in DevGru or Delta operators to go in there and kill a bunch of Yemeni people. They're not showing you those pictures consistently, but they are showing you pictures about people in Ukraine. Well, people in Ukraine suffering, it's human suffering, we need to know about it. But they're purposely showing you that, so you got to ask yourself the question, what's the agenda? It can't just be reporting, because if it was reporting, they'd have people on the ground in Yemen, right? And they would be bringing you that information that starving girl is the rule, not the exception. You can count all this little girl's ribs. Mercifully, she's back with her creator now. But she should have lived a long, healthy, beautiful life on this earth. And the Saudis are destroying that girl's family and a whole bunch of people like her. So when you start getting emotional about Ukraine, as you should, you just need to understand that a small group of people who have lost their humanity are banking on your humanity. And they're banking on the fact that the proper emotions that you feel when you see people suffering are going to override your analytical abilities into how the suffering came to be in the first place, who's responsible for the suffering ultimately, and how to avoid said suffering 5 years down the line. Pointing at Vladimir Putin and saying he's the reason is not going to solve that problem. It's not going to answer those three questions. And guys, after this episode about Mr. Putin, okay, after that episode of Mr. Putin, when that there'll be another bad guy or another event that's designed to gin up your emotions. Fear and hate seem to be the most easily accessed emotions to trigger via the media. They're going to get you to do that, and then they're going to be able to go forward with their own agenda. So you got to pull back and say, what is the agenda here? Why do they want me to hate this person? Why do they want me to feel bad for this person? So I just encourage you to think about that. Okay. You see the Gigi Hadid tweet where she said she had given money, I think it was to Ukrainian aid charity and a Palestinian aid charity, and news outlet cut out the Palestinian part and shared it. Of course. I mean, I can't confirm that, but I believe it's true. I believe it's true. Now, look, let me show you guys something, okay? Let me show you how far this goes, okay? Because this I'll give it to the New York Post for this one, okay? I'll give it to the New York Post. I usually try to quote credible sources, but let me just show you one thing, because again, I think this is an unintended consequence of this psychological warfare campaign they've waged against us. Here we go. Conference axes name a first man in space because he was Russian. Okay, there's the homie. Shout out to the homie. Okay. And why? Well, it says a space conference held in honor of famed Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin has been renamed because he was Russian. And now, in a now deleted announcement, The nonprofit Space Foundation said that in light of current world events, they would be changing Yuri's night to a celebration of space, discover what's next. The focus on fundraising remains the same, yada, 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 yada. Just completely removes this guy's name. Just erase him from history. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to erase him from history. But this is horrible. And again, there is the agenda, the specific agenda that our government has. I don't think they said, oh, okay, let's demonize Russia to the point that people are pouring out vodka and all the rest of it. I don't think that that's what's happening. But I think what's happening is you cannot accurately predict psychological contagion. You cannot accurately predict the ramifications and the secondary and the tertiary fallout from your propaganda efforts. So now this thing is taking on a life of its own so that we do silly shit like that. Now, turning something from French fries to freedom fries is a little bit ridiculous, but whatever. But now we're trying to erase and marginalize Russia all over the planet. And now we're purging them from space even, apparently, in light of recent events. So guys, all I'm saying is that the Biden laptop controversy is important because it highlights very clearly what is happening in our media and the fact that they are not working for us at all. And it also highlights how important communities like this are, not to be self-serving. Recently in Italy, university courses on Dostoevsky were canceled. I mean, here we go. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Okay? Just look, I'm never going to tell you to not have your heart engaged when you see human suffering across the world. I don't care who's suffering, Ukrainian, Russian, Yemen. You should always have your heart engaged in human suffering. But make sure that your mind, that you protect your mind. Because these people are going after your mind. They're going after your ability to reason. And they're creating an environment. You know, the scripture says there's no fear in love, but perfect love casts out all fear, because fear has to do with torment. So they're presenting to you a certain kind of torment, whether it's Saddam Hussein, whether it's Trump, whether it's COVID, whether it's Putin. There's some sort of torment that all these beings or people are going to bring to you. And so that gins up fear because you don't want to go through that torment. And then they emotionally blackmail you and say, do you want to get out of this torment? Well, here's the way out. So they create a problem and then they solve it by taking away your rights or expanding the American empire, whatever. And you got to use your mind. All right. I think that's all that I got for you beautiful people. If there's another story that breaks, let me know and we'll all discuss it together. Hold on. Let me answer this one question because the great Izzy Jimenez, my favorite middle American of all time, is saying something. When all is said and done, do you see any way Russia can come back from the erasures of anything Russian? Well, as a lot of people have pointed out, this has been going on with America and Russia for a very long time. Although what's unique about this Ukraine situation is that it has galvanized the Western world to further isolate the Russian people. So, you know, Germany not approving Nord Stream 2, the SWIFT stuff. It depends on who the next bad guy is. Obviously, my prediction is that China is going to be the next bad guy, and the full weight of our propaganda apparatus is going to be to go after China. So I think in that regard, the Russians would be able to recover from that perspective once we're looking at China. But who knows? I mean, I don't know. I truly do not know. But I know somebody who quit playing the township game because the owners are Russian. Some of this is just absolutely incredibly ridiculous to me, and some of this is just terrifying. Like, the biggest thing is like how easy it is to trigger people and get them all get millions of people marching in the same direction against their neighbors. It's mind-boggling to me. As Mark is saying, hold every thought captive. Yeah, I mean that's a Christian phrase. We hold every thought captive and bring it under submission to Christ. But you really have to understand that there's a war for our minds. I mean, it's a psychological warfare, and you got to protect your mind. You got to protect your consciousness. I know it sounds like woo woo, but you can't uncritically take this stuff. You got to look into why. Why is everybody doing this? Oh, Putin's doing this because he's a madman. Okay. Yeah. Why, though? Make people answer that question for you. Otherwise, we have no hope. Okay. Like I said, you wait. There's going to be another bad guy, another group of people to fear. And there's very little difference between fear and hate. Okay. Fear is the emotion. Hate is the expression. Hate is just is just someone's expressed fear. That's all it is, really. All right. I think we're done now. There you are, dear listener.